Welcome back to Tech Tips. Today we're going to continue talking about LLM. So the previous video was very popular where I explained how different companies implement LLM in their product. So we talked about relativity, v-discovery, Everlaw. One thing we talked very little about is RAG. So I did mention it, I didn't call it RAG. A lot of people said, that's RAG you're talking about. I'm like, okay, so it doesn't matter what terminology it is. But today, let's go deep into RAG and understand how it works. If you didn't watch the previous video, I recommend you go and do that. I'll leave a link somewhere so you can check that out, get a cup of coffee, watch that video, and then come back to this one as a second one that's going to make more sense. Maybe okay as a standalone too. But so let's go to my screen. I got a really short PowerPoint, so I'm not going to kill you with that. And we're going to talk about how RAG works. All right, so we're on my screen. And first thing we're going to do before talking about RAG is understand a little bit about how we interact with large language model. So as a typical user, you know, if you're, I don't know, researching something or you doing something for fun, you may create a query to language models saying, write a poem about e-discovery. All right. We as an e-discovery professionals are never going to be doing this. We're never going to just ask language model to just make something up, write a story or a letter or anything like that. What we want to do is ask it about something specific. So the way we're going to do that is we're always going to combine our prompt with a document, right? So as an example, we could say, create summary of the following text, and then we'll paste the document text in there, right? And then it's going to read the text and tell us the results. Or we could say, list, names of people in the following text, and then we give it a text. And again, that's what it's going to do. It's going to analyze the text and tell us information about it. This is how relativity's AIR works, VLM works, a bunch of others. We take in the prompt, combine it with the document, and we send it to a model. That's kind of what I want you to think of right now. Is we never just send in an empty prompt, we just give me a poem, that makes no sense. We always need something that we're talking about. With that in mind, let's talk about RAG. So the first thing we need is documents, right? So I have a list of documents here, documents 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the documents in our workspace, files in the folder. It doesn't matter where. We want to work with these documents and we want to use RAG technology on these documents. How do we do that? Well, firstly, we can't just take documents as they are. What we have to do is break them up into smaller pieces. I call it chunks. You can call them, anything you want. But what happens is document 1 gets broken up into document 1, chunk 1, and chunk 2. Document 2 happens to be pretty small, so it just gets, its own chunk 1. But then document 3 is kind of big, so it gets broken up into 3 pieces, right? And so on. So we are taking these documents and we're dividing them. How we dividing them? There might be some guidelines, but is it by paragraphs or by pages? There are a lot of unanswered questions there. What's the best way to do it? And depends how you do it, the results will vary. But that is the first step of RAG, is to take lots and lots of documents and make way more chunks. All right. So next, we're going to take a question, who framed Roger Rabbit, whatever question you want to ask, and we're going to use some kind of technology, I call proprietary tech, to query those chunks. Now, this query could be ran against an index of a chunk or whichever way, but we're going to use a certain technology. There are no specifications exactly what technology to use. This is left up to people who implement this. So whatever technology they want to use. And then we're going to match the question with chunks. And the matching process will give us prioritized results. So it'll tell us document 5, chunk number 2 is the most matching chunk to the question you asked. Document 2, chunk 1 is the next in line, and then 5, chunk 6, and there could be more. It can give you lots of them, right? So now you know which chunks are the most relevant to your question and the ones that are least relevant. Now we can take these chunks and we could say, okay, I'm going to take top 2 and I'm going to combine them. I'm going to take my original question, right? And I'm going to combine them with doc 5 chunk 2 and doc 2 chunk 1. Can you take 3? Yes. Can you take 4? Sure. But at some point, you're going to max out your context window, so you can't take everything, right? You have a prioritized result that came back to you, and you need to make that decision. You got to pick a certain number of chunks that you will combine with your original question. And that is what you're going to send to large language model. And then it's going to come back with the answer. That is overall how RAG works. So to summarize, document split up into chunks, chunks converted to an index, whatever, query run against the index, list of chunks are returned in order of most relevance, top X number of chunks is selected, select chunks gets sent to LLM with the original question, LLM returns results. That's basically how I was able to summarize. This is the shortest list. So now, the first slide that I showed you about how we use LLM, right? We don't just send the query. What if we put the information we just learned with the previous 2 ways that we could send data to the LLM? And then it would look something like this. We have query to LLM using RAG, and we say, according to the following text, what was John Smith's job description? Text chunk 1, 2, 3, etc. So now if you think about it, this starts to look kind of interesting, because this really isn't that different from query with a document. In fact, to LLM, it's the same thing. It doesn't know any difference from, document text or chunks or anything. It's just a text that it's getting. So now we can get into this interesting debate and say, well, is relativity's error actually RAG? Maybe. Same thing with VLM. Is it the RAG? I don't know. It looks like it, right? There is no real difference, except one has number of steps that come before the query, and some do not. Some just send the document text. So kind of an interesting thing to consider. All right. Finally, let's just summarize everything we learned. And RAG, it's an idea, right? RAG is not a documented process that everyone follows. Different companies will implement it differently, making their own set of assumptions. So just because someone say RAG doesn't mean this person does it the same way as that person. There could be a million different assumptions made, and the results could be completely different from one company to the next. There is no absolute guide how to do it. It's all made up, and million assumptions are made. Next, RAG is a 2-step process, so we querying question against an index or chunks, and then send a query to LLM. Not all data is retrieved by first search that gets sent to LLM. Therefore, answer is only based on the partial data set that deemed most relevant. Not all data goes to LLM. Very important. And because of that, you can use positive results, but you cannot rely on negative results. So what I mean is, if you ask a question and you get a response that says, here is the answer. If you're happy with the answer, great, you're done, it's good. But if the LLM says, I don't know, or I don't have information, that doesn't mean information isn't available. It may not have been queried properly. So you cannot say that because it didn't tell me that the information isn't there. And finally, RAG does not eliminate hallucinations. Just a fact that I want to put in there. Hallucinations are never truly eliminated. They can be improved upon, or there's certain steps can be done afterwards with the results to check if they're possible hallucinations, but they never ever truly eliminate it. So there you go. That's my addition to previous LLM video. I hope you guys find it helpful. Please share it with your coworkers. Do all the usual social media stuff. Thumbs up, share, all that. Helps me, of course. And thank you for watching. I will see you on another Tech Tips video.